Welcome to sous vide. This is something maybe you have many questions about. Hopefully I'll be able to answer them and give you some confidence to be able to cook some things at home in sous vide, but also understand when you're in a restaurant and they tell you it's cooked sous vide, you understand how it's prepared. There's a misconception for most people that sous vide cooking is convenient. It's not convenient from a time point of view in this environment at this specific temperature. But the flavors are going to be much more intense cooking sous vide. What is sous vide? Sous vide is about a machine that is vacuum packing. It's removing all of the oxygen from a bag. It's not a new technique. This is a technique that's over 70 years old. One that was developed for preservation of food. Coffee was a good example. Turkeys was another one. Maybe you've heard of it as cryovac, and that's something that we're kind of all familiar with. We see in our grocery stores products that are sous vide all the time, from deli meat to boil-in-a-bag vegetables. Let me just go through some things, because the word sous vide cooking in and of itself is a misnomer. We think about cooking, sous vide cooking is really related to the immersion circulator here. Or what I've always said, all cooking, regardless, is about time and temperature. The great thing about sous vide cooking, or this type of cooking with an immersion circulator, is precision. You see here, there's a temperature on here, it's in Celsius. It'll maintain this water bath at that temperature indefinitely until the electricity either runs out or the machine breaks down. The water is circulating, and certainly we know that water conducts heat more evenly than anything else. So being able to cook something in a water bath at a specific temperature gives us that precision cooking. But it's still about time and temperature. We want to have to make sure that the interior, the middle of whatever we're cooking, reaches the 57 degrees Celsius, and then we can take it out. We know that it is exactly at 57 degrees Celsius, which is about medium rare if we're cooking lamb or beef or another red meat. Now, we have to be very, very careful, because remember, I talked about safety, and safety is key. Safety is key here. We want to make sure that our food is really cold, that we're going to put in our sous vide machine if we're going to sous vide it. It's really cold, that our hands are really clean, using gloves, I would suggest in this case, that we're not touching the interior of the bag with anything that could create bacteria, and that the edge of the bag, when we seal it, is perfectly sealed. We have two vacuum packing machines here. One is for the retail market, for the consumer at home. It's relatively inexpensive. It does a decent job in removing oxygen. This is some potatoes that I've run through this machine, and you can still see there's air in there, which is the basic problem, because once I put this in my immersion circulator, in my hot water to cook my potatoes, if I'm going to cook them in this bag, that air is going to expand, the potatoes will float to the top, and therefore we're not getting an even cooking. This is another example of something that has moisture in it. This is a piece of watermelon. We just wanted to give you an example, because the machine, once the machine starts to evacuate or draw out the air, as soon as the moisture hits the machine sensors, it shuts down and seals the bag. And of course, you can see here, there is a lot of air in there. And that's just not what we want. We don't want air if we're going to use for storage and or for cooking, especially for cooking. I'm going to show you three things here. We have a watermelon, a piece of short rib, and we have carrots. The carrots and the beef will be cooked at specific temperatures for specific amounts of time. And the watermelon, we're just going to compress. I'll show you how we compress watermelons or fruits. Dealing with our commercial bags, we want to be careful in how we handle them. We'd always fold our bags to place our ingredients inside. The problem with that as you can see, we've damaged the plastic on the bag, which would potentially prevent it from sealing completely. And that seal is critical. So we don't do that anymore. What we do is we want to make sure that we're working safely. So this is the one time that I'll use gloves, making sure that they're fresh gloves and I'm only using them once. In other words, I'm not doing more than one technique with it, or one ingredient for that matter. We have our carrots. We'll go ahead and just kind of place that. So I'm just taking the bottom half of the bag and placing it right there, which allows me to hold the bag with my fingers and then go ahead and drop my carrots in. Okay. And there we go. Now, there's no moisture up here, which is good because, again, if we had moisture up here from our ingredients, that would also potentially prevent the seal. Lay them in the cavity of our sous vide machine. Make sure that my edge is right there, and go ahead and begin. I check the seal, nice seal, no air. There we have our carrots ready to be cooked. I'm going to go ahead and do a protein where we could either slow cook this in low heat or a higher heat with a shorter period of time. So we have a flexibility here with our time and temperature. Typically, conventionally, when we cook, our temperatures are much, much, much higher. And this is where the skill really becomes very important for chefs, is to be able to cook, to be able to glaze carrots on top of a stove at a very high temperature, over 212 degrees, and know when they're done, having just the right amount of liquid, the right amount of salt, the right amount of sugar, the right amount of butter, so that when the carrots are completely cooked, in other words, don't have any resistance, they're perfectly glazed. That takes a lot of skill. Doing this removes that skill, but gives you a consistent product. So we understand that. And something I always caution our young chefs on, or all chefs, is that as wonderful as sous vide cooking is, if we only employ sous vide cooking in our kitchens, then we're going to lose those basic skills of how to be a cook. Remember, roasting in an oven, we're roasting at 350, 375, 400, 425. And of course, the internal temperature, we'd never want it to reach that 425 or 350 degrees. The skill that we must employ is the ability to understand when to take that protein out of the oven so that it has a period of time in the resting to reach the internal temperature that it needs to be. So we're actually taking a roast out of the oven before it reaches the internal temperature, and the carryover reaches that internal temperature. That takes a lot of skill, a lot of knowledge, and an enormous amount of practice. The same thing with a piece of fish on the stovetop. You need to understand when that salmon's going to be medium rare. You need to take it out just before it's medium rare so that, again, the carryover temperature, that high temperature, is carried over to make sure that the internal temperature that we're trying to reach is maintained, or that internal temperature is reached. It's a complicated process, but one that takes a lot of that guesswork out of internal temperature, but diminishes our ability to learn the skills that we need to learn as young chefs or as chefs. Okay, so a fresh pair of gloves. We have our short rib here. And again, I know it's been sitting here for a few minutes, but let's assume that it just came out of the refrigerator. It's ice cold. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and season it. Again, our seasoning way above, letting it rain down. And then we'll get our bag, open it up. Just going to place that beef inside. Okay. Take off my glove because you do have moisture on it. I don't want to get that moisture in there. And then we'll go ahead and once again, check our seal, making sure that it is completely sealed. And there's our short rib. Now, the amount of ingredients that you can put in a bag relates to, of course, the size of the bag. Could we have put a few more carrots in here? Certainly. Could we have oriented our short rib going sideways and put 2 in here? Certainly. So the bags do cost, so we want to make sure that we're being efficient in the way we use our bags. So just want to bring that up so that you can understand that as I'm sous videing or as I'm cryovacuuming, I'm showing you the technique, not necessarily the efficiency of how many pieces or how much we can fill our bags. The last one that I want to show you is a lot of fun, and this is about compression. I want to show you how to compress fruits and vegetables, and we're going to use a piece of watermelon, which is very porous, has a lot of air in the interior. And it's fun and very interesting in the way that it looks after all of that air is pulled out and the flesh is compressed. So again, the same thing. Now, compression, just so you understand, is something that we're not going to store in the bag. We're going to compress this watermelon, open the bag, and use it. So it's not about storage. It's not about cooking. It's simply about using our sous vide machine or our cryovac machine to draw the air out and compress the fruit, giving it a more intense flavor and certainly a much more intense color. Is it important to use gloves with compressing? Not necessarily, because we're going to take it out of the bag immediately. But I just want to show you that just to be safe. Continue safety. Go ahead and take it out, achieve what we want to achieve. You can see the difference in size, the difference in density, And of course, by removing all the air from this porous watermelon, we have intensified the flavor. There's quite a bit more to tell you. There's quite a bit more to learn. I would recommend that you buy one of the several books that are out there on sous vide cooking. You can explore even deeper. Certainly there's a lot of information online at different companies that make the equipment that you can buy. You can find out so much more about sous vide cooking, almost too much, that'll kind of scare you. That said, I hope that I've given you a foundation of understanding for you to be able to at least explore what you want to be able to do, whether it's investing in the technology equipment or just trying it with a pot of water and a thermometer and some ice and plastic wrap. It gives you an opportunity to really have fun and extend your cooking capabilities to an area where you maybe not have tried before. But remember, always remember, safety first, safety, safety, safety. And then cooking, no matter if it's braising, boiling, oven roasting, pan roasting, sous vide cooking, it's all about time and temperature.